Fun fact, Taylor and I did that interview 3 years ago. Next month we'll make it 3 years. And how relevant was some of the stuff that we were talking about, from lap dances to vulnerability? Oh my gosh. And so I have to bring Taylor on because, of course, a lot has happened in those 3 years since we did that interview at my friend's house. Shout out to Herbert. And so I welcome the one and only Taylor Ferber. Hi, Furby.
Hi, look at this legit setup. Oh my goodness. Can you believe that was 3 years ago?
I absolutely can. But what was so funny, as I would watch it over and over again, I'm like, yep. I've evolved a little bit more, but I'm like, there's still some things that I'm like, yeah, that still feels about right.
I know. I thought about it and I haven't, I was, until today, I hadn't seen it. And I was like, oh my God, what did I even say 3 years ago? Like, I'm always a crazy ass bitch, but I don't know if it's been dialed up or down since then. So,
Okay, so like jumping right into it, the first thing that made mention, because I feel like Chrissy Teigen's name has been splattered up and down Twitter these past. I mean, like that was 3 years ago. Her name is still being splattered up and down Twitter like these past few months. What do you feel like you learned from that altercation?
oh my gosh. Actually, what we're all going through right now, not to be cliche and cheesy, but that when in the moment when your life gets rocked and stuff happens and you don't know why, there's always a reason why.
Yeah.
So had that not in the moment, I was like, oh my God, I just moved to LA. I'm working for VH1. I have no one out here. I can't lose my job. What am I going to do? It was the biggest blessing because it changed. Leaving VH1 after that and my thing with her changed my entire life. I ended up being a red carpet reporter and launching my own site and interviewing, like just doing things, going around the world to visit movie sets and report on, interview every like the thing, go to the Grammys, Oscars. So it just really changed the course of everything. And I think I'm trying to hold on to that right now because I'm like, what is the reason?
It's so funny you said that because there was a couple of photos that I loved on your Instagram. There was, I mean, you had on this black dress. I think you were at the Oscars, but I literally actually thought the same exact thing. Once that happened, I felt like your world changed so quickly, but like for all the right reasons on the things that you wanted to do. And I was just like, yes, Furby, yes.
Thank you, Chrissy Teigen, because it would have, I don't know what would have happened otherwise. I probably
Right.
still would have been in a cubicle.
Yeah, yeah, no, and it's because we were offlining about this before. It was like during this pandemic, all these things happened, right? Like I got on unemployment, but I started my company. I started having clients. I started doing all the things I wanted to do, working for myself. I got back into my podcast, started a second one, launching After Dark. And again, if it wasn't for Rona, Taylor, none of that would have happened. So if it wasn't for Chrissy, you wouldn't have been where you ventured off
I'm
into.
trying to, Corona is the Chrissy of 2020. So I'm like, okay, where are we going now? Like, I'd like to know.
I like that. I like
But
that. That's awesome.
so
So can
yeah,
I also say I love that there was some badassery that I also saw because we're catching up from the 3 years that happened, kind of picking up where we left off, right?
I know.
And I loved how you leaned into you and some other journalists were in Playboy magazine. And I know when people think Playboy, they're thinking like the traditional, you're posing nude, yaya's in someone's face, your clitoris is here, titties are here, but there was some taste to it. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened, what made you pose for Playboy magazine?
Absolutely. You forgot labia, like a good labia
Oh,
moment. Who could forget? No, I always was so obsessed with Playboy. I just love the idea of women like owning their sexuality and being like in charge. And I don't know, I just loved that always. And I actually pitched the idea to Playboy because
oh,
I was like, I want to be in Playboy, but I'm also a journalist. And especially with the rise of like the Instagram model, I felt like we put models and the whole, like on such a pedestal. And I was guilty of it. I was kind of judging them, honestly. I was like, oh, I'm working hard as a journalist and you just strap a thong on and blah, 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 blah. And I kind of had my own awakening. And I was like, wait, why can't you be both? Why can't you
mm,
one day pose and the next day write, an amazing think piece for a newspaper? You can always be all of those things. So
same.
why, and vice versa. The playmate can also be a writer. The writer can be a playmate. So I pitched it to them, and because honestly, would Vanity Fair ever do that? Would they ever put their own writers in
No.
nude print? Never.
I
was
can't
like,
see
you
that.
guys are the only ones who have the ball. So it was me and 5 other female journalists, and we wrote essays about free expression and not putting ourselves in boxes and why we can be all things, you know?
Oh,
So
I love that. I mean, you really own that. You know, I know I had my judgments about Playboy magazine, but that was also because I was prude. I went to Catholic school when I was younger, even though
did you?
I did, even though I moved far away from it as I got older, I was like, Playboy magazine.
Wow.
But when I saw and just how you explained it, I just felt like you leaned in and just owned it. And I think what I struggled with, Taylor, was owning my sexuality, leaning into like us as women being these sexual beings and not boxed into how they want to see us.
Yeah.
So that's what I felt. Yeah.
And
And
the
I had
thing
to, and that
is
took me some
too,
time.
with your like with you being like, I judged it, the thing is that's still an issue, right? Like
Yeah.
right now, we are on the job hunt. I'm unemployed looking for a job, the whole thing. And I'm gonna be honest with you, doing my resume, my LinkedIn, all that stuff. People are like, employers are going to look at your thing and see there's still going to be that judgment. You know what I mean? And I'm like, right, but that's exactly what my thing is about. So there's still that sort of, way of
Looming.
looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, with you being in celebrity culture and reporting on it, because a lot of the celebrities fucked up in the beginning, right? When Rona happened, how can they really contribute to society? Like, what do you feel like their role should be or could be during these times?
Okay, this isn't going to be popular considering I've spent
I
the last
love it.
years being an entertainment celebrity reporter, journalist, but by shutting up, because I just feel like being so integrated in Hollywood all those years, I really saw how the elite, how different their lives are than ours. You guys, they have gorgeous mansions overlooking the Hollywood Hills. They have black car service. They have a chef. They have everything you could ever want. And I feel like in a time like right now, when so many of us are suffering, I've been out of work. I've been on unemployment. People not being able to pay their mortgage, being able to send their kids to school. I feel like celebs have never been more out of touch.
Right.
And the gap between the elite and normal people is just growing. So whenever I see a celebrity be like trying, like wear a mask, this or that, even Black Lives Matter, I don't see you getting, a few got out in the riots.
Yeah.
Easy for them to text from their mansions and not get out and get their hands dirty. So when it comes to coronavirus, I just feel like, you guys, we're not in the same ballpark. Just stop. I'm going to stop you before you go any further.
Right. Your Talk to Me platform really just kind of flipped things on its head from like the traditional celebrity interviews to more unconventional. Two-parter. How receptive has celebrities been to your approach? And then what was your most memorable celebrity interview?
God. Well, so I would go on the red carpet, and I was so tired of seeing the really polished interviews, right? With like the big cameras and the keyboard.
Right.
It felt so stiff. So I went on a red carpet and I would interview celebrities using a selfie stick. So it was so disarming, and we would talk about real stuff, real issues, from sex to what's going on in the world, all the kind of things. And they loved it. They would grab it from my hand. They'd like their hair. I interviewed Vivica A. Fox. She was one of my first ones. And she was like, wait, okay, let me get my sweat. Hold on, let me do my lip gloss. It was hysterical. And I'm like, you never see them like this ever. They really let their hair down. My most memorable stuff this wasn't even that long ago, 3 years ago, stuff that we could never, ever do today. With Me Too and all this stuff, right? So Brooklyn Decker and I grabbed each other's boobs. Michael Douglas grabbed my nose. Cuba Gooding Jr. put his arm around me. All this stuff that now they wouldn't even go with a 10-foot pole. So I miss that.
Yeah. Yeah. Please tell us what is next for you. I like to call you Furby, my Furby. What is next for you?
I love being your Furby. Anytime, any day. Even though it's not the 90s, the Furby lives on. Right?
I love it.
So now I'm obviously breaking out of the celeb reporter mold.
Okay, yes. What's going on?
Well, I have a podcast. It's undergoing a name change at the moment. It was called Two Blondes Don't Make a Right. And me and a fellow red carpet reporter kind of did what I'm doing now, you know, calling stuff as we saw it, called celebs on the hypocrisy, kind of riffed on celeb culture in a fun way and told our stories. She's no longer doing it. So it's just me holding down the fort. So
You got this.
yeah, I'm going to keep going and really have the conversations that, you know, the group think would shudder at the thought and really just keep going. So I'm doing that on podcast format and Instagram live every Thursday, and to just keep it real. You know, we need that right now.
Absolutely. Wait, so what are you going to call? Are you going to call it Talk to Me, Taylor, the podcast?
I don't think so. I want
Okay.
something really, I'm thinking like, this might be a little hardcore, but something like Cancel Me. I dare you. Like something like, you know, because I go there, yeah.
No, but why not? I mean, the two podcasts that I'm doing. So I have Black and Nuance, right? That's my main. The second one I'm doing, that's a co-host situation, is Pack Light, the podcast. Pack Light.
I love it.
And so our themes are basically talking about different things. So go as hard as you fucking need to, Ferby.
This is the time.
Why not?
Honestly, because with what I do, it got shut down covering all these events. Hollywood is shut down. And I think that same with you, G, like this is the time to really find our voice and just like Godspeed, because if not now, then when? Especially now, the world stopped. So
it makes me think about the Beyonce, Nicki Minaj song, like World Stop, right? So, like that's exactly.
But for 5 months.
Seriously.
Like, I'm waiting for Beyonce to come back and be like, carry on, because I'm
yes,
you know,
pretty on fleek, like something where we feel like there's some type of normalcy happening, but there's just no such thing that's going to happen. And I think, you know, with the unfortunate piece of like people losing loved ones and the amount of people that we lost, I think a lot of people were able to recalibrate in ways that they didn't imagine. You and myself, you know, and then people I've talked to or people I haven't spoken to in some time that I'm seeing and watching them do their thing from a distance. I'm just like, shit, well, we have done this on our own. And I can tell you for me, I don't know if I would have. I've been talking about it, but until I actually got let go from the comfy company culture, I was literally like, yeah, I'm gonna start my own consulting company. The next day I filed for LegalZoom for my company name.
Exactly. You won't do it until you have that push.
Absolutely.
Even doing a podcast with a co-host and then she dropped out.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, I can't host a podcast alone. And then I did it and it was great.
Yes, you can.
You need that push. Wait, I'm curious really quick though. What do you think celebs should do in Corona?
You know, I think it depends on who it is. I think it's the messenger, right? And so I know you brought up Black Lives Matter. We want to see more white allyship. I think that's really important. But what I don't want to hear is like some outrage. Don't sing me a song. Like you need to show up in ways that's very uncomfy for you, right? Like I think that's the issue. It's either be quiet, like you said, or show up in ways that makes you feel uncomfortable. My Caribbean accent really makes you feel uncomfy, because that's the only way there's going to be some things shaken up. And that, I mean, like that's personally. Agree. Yeah. No one wants to be like, oh my gosh, wait, so you want me to do what and say what to who? It's like, no, we're tired of fighting. Ferby, like we're tired. It affects us. And so, yeah, that's the first thought that comes to mind with that.
Mm-hmm.
With Rona, like, unless you're going to give up some money, some housing, some like, just move quietly, like Jay-Z and Beyonce and other celebrities. Just move quietly.
Completely agree.
Move quietly. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to move loudly, let it be purposeful.
I completely agree.
You know? So
yeah, and that's been going on in Hollywood, especially, you know, all the events I covered with celebrities, you know, at these fancy galas and fundraisers, and they'd be in black tie and drinking champagne. And it's like, okay, but I don't see you out in whatever country getting your hand, you know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know. I think that the curtain is being pulled back though. And I think that
absolutely.
People are like privy to that whole, the fake, what is it? Like the fake activism, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Feel good, social activism. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I also feel like things are being pulled back too as it relates to Hollywood, right? Like, you know, people keep making money off of Black culture, but you all haven't poured into Black culture. You're not even like feeding us, right? Like literally, not literally, but figuratively speaking, like, why aren't you hiring more Black people to be in these rooms to curate or to offer up different things, whether it's the writer's room, whether it's executive level type stuff. And it's just, I got tired of like, even calling out Viacom CBS, just knowing there were moments where, you know, on Nickelodeon, 8 minutes and 46 seconds, they blacked out the screen. I was just like, well, there's an oppressive ass man that still works there that fired my boss because she was Black and she was in the way of him getting what he wanted. So your 8 minutes and 46 seconds doesn't mean anything to me or anyone that knows better. And so that's the shit that I can't take.
Well, listen, I covered, it was actually before coronavirus happened. This is like exactly what you're talking about, the ultimate hypocrisy. I covered an event and they were honoring Bob Iger, who's, you know who Bob Iger is,
right?
CEO of Disney. And Kerry Washington was there and did a speech for him. And I thought this was the ultimate hypocrisy. He did a whole speech on the podium and got a standing O. And he was like, what I'm committed to is bringing in more women and even, you know, further women of color. And I'm thinking, if you really cared, step down and hire a woman of color to take your place. But once it's, like you said, uncomfortable, that's where it stops. So, you know,
right. He's still going to get paid. I mean, like, no one wants to relieve themselves for any powerful position, anything that offers power, right? And so a lot of things will remain to be seen. I'm just kind of curious and watching God work on the universe. Like, the earth started getting reset. You know, they were talking about, was it in Italy where like the dolphins and like the animals that were in the water in those canals that they've never seen started coming out because there were no boats going through there.
That.
Oh yeah, it was like, wait a minute. I mean, there's just so many things being unearthed, Ferby, and so I'm curious. You know, I'm kind of curious on what will happen next. But yeah, I love it. I love where you're going next. I'm so happy for you.
Oh my gosh, likewise.
And yes, you can do that podcast on your own. Trust me, it's an empowering feeling. You move how you feel necessary.
We're doing it. We're doing it.
We're
gonna doing it, push people's buttons and get in there and talk
Absolutely.
about
Well, let me know where I can find, you know, how people can find your podcast and you, but I want to subscribe. Now, I didn't realize you changed it and it's only you doing it by yourself. I love that.
Yeah, it's Talk to Me Taylor is my IG, and everything is there. The link to the podcast is in my bio. Okay. I also do IGTVs now. I'm gonna do them every Thursday with interviews. So Liddy Central.
Liddy Central. I love it. Ferby, I love you so much.
I love you too. Congratulations on After Dark. Lucky.
Thank you.
3 years later, 3's a charm. 3's the lucky number. I'm so excited.
3's a charm, and then 7 is the number of completion because I have 7 episodes. So there's 6 more weeks.
Boom.
Next Thursday, episode 2. So I'm so excited. Thank you so much for kicking this off. And I love you. Let me know how I can support you and all that you're doing.
I can't wait to see where it takes you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Ferby, you have a good night. Please be safe.
Trying my best.
Okay, love you. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.